Good morning, everybody. This is Liz, and today I have a special guest that I would love for you to meet. Been very excited to hear her story. It's going to be more unusual than anybody we've had on our podcast, and I will let her go ahead and introduce herself, and we'll go from there.
Hey everyone, it's Amber Connor. I am the owner of Sinless Sweets Bakery here in Augusta, Georgia. And my husband is Brian Connor, who runs it's weird saying the Augusta franchise when it's called
Yes.
Augusta, but he's here in Augusta, Georgia, and just recently branched out and did North Augusta. So a lot of you guys probably know him, but I am his wife and I'm also a business owner.
Yes, so that is why we wanted to have Amber on the show because it is pretty rare that we have a spouse that's running their own business as well, and then having the owner run his business and all the different things that coincide with that. And it doesn't always mesh. And so we're so excited to hear how it's worked out for you guys today. So, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into Sinless Sweets.
Yeah, so Sinless Sweets started, I guess April will be 4 years ago now, but 2020 is when it started. Yeah, I guess it will be 4 years. And I have always loved baking. I have a health and fitness background. And so when Brian and I had our nutrition company called Natural Truth Nutrition, we would help create meal plans for people who were just looking to live a healthier lifestyle. Some of them looking to compete, but we would do these meal plans and I would create the dessert portion of it. And so everybody, I think, whenever they're looking to live a healthier lifestyle or looking to make some changes, the dessert is always they always want something sweet, and that's kind of where people tend to fall off the wagon. So I would create these healthy dessert recipes, and the biggest piece of feedback I got was, Amber, we appreciate you creating these recipes, but we're not going to do it. Why don't you bake them and we'll buy them from you? Well, at the time we had a 2 year old, a very active 2 year old little boy. We had Caden, and I was so wrapped up in competing and being a coach that I just didn't have the time to really move into that, as far as actually baking for people. And so 2020 hit, and I was 16 weeks pregnant with our little girl, and we had a name picked out, and we started clearing her room and was going to get her room ready. And 2 days after we found out we were having her, we lost her and we experienced a miscarriage. And I firmly believe when you go through something like that in your life that you can go one or two ways with it. You can kind of fall into this deep depression and question why did this happen to me? What did I do wrong? But Brian and I are very faith-based people. And so I chose to turn to my faith more than ever during that time. And even though I had my questions as to why is this happening? What did I do? I chose to really take that and just see how I could move on and move forward with what the Lord had given us and how we could how I could deal with it. And so baking had always been a stress reliever for me. So in order to deal with the pain and everything that I was going through with the loss of our little girl, I got in the kitchen and started baking just as a way to make myself feel better. And so then I just started sharing this on social media, and people started reaching out to me. And of course, it was during COVID. So COVID had happened. It's the start of COVID. I had just experienced the loss of our little girl. And so that's when everybody was at home, like especially here in
Right.
Augusta, Georgia, nobody could leave. Like you could go to the gas station, you could go to the grocery store, but that was it. And so I would bake and share these recipes, and I had people start reaching out to me and say, hey, we'll pay you for these recipes. Can you bake these and deliver them to us? And I was working at the gym at the time. Well, the gym, as you know, all gyms completely shut down during COVID. So it was just me and Caden at home. And so I would bake all day, throw Caden in the car with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and we would go and deliver all of these goodies to people's doorsteps, essentially. And so by the time the gym opened back up, this was this was, I guess, in February, this started. And then the gym had opened back up in July. But by the time the gym opened back up, I was supplementing my income with baking the same that I was at the gym. And so I really felt like the Lord takes something so horrible and turns it into something so beautiful. And I didn't see the plan he had for me at the time. If you would have asked me 5 years ago if I ever would have seen myself opening up a bakery, I would tell you that you are absolutely crazy. That's not what I'm going to do with my life. But you know, he supplemented my income, and like I said, by the time the gym opened back up, I was baking full time, and then I had an opportunity to go into business with somebody else. She was opening up a restaurant and she was going to let me bake out of there. So that was kind of my first stepping stone. And then after I left there, I opened up the food truck. And then we only had the food truck for probably about 6 months before I realized I needed more kitchen space. I was baking out of my home. I was renting out a kitchen. We had gotten pregnant with Jackson, who is our second little boy. So I was 9 months pregnant running this food truck. If you guys have been to Georgia, the heat in Georgia on a metal food truck doesn't make for the greatest combination. But I think I worked that food truck up until like 2 days before I gave birth. And then by the time I had Jackson and Jackson was 4 months old, we opened up the storefront. And now here we are. In about 2 weeks, the storefront will be open for 2 years. So time just flies by, but you know, the Lord works in mysterious ways. And he actually, so Henley, which was the little girl that we had, that we lost, her due date was on July 29th. And she was supposed to be born in 2020. And then in 2021, Jackson was actually born on her birthday. So they
Oh,
share
man.
a birthday. So it comes full circle that, you know, on what would have been Henley's first birthday and was a day of what would have been a day of heartache, and ended up being the most joyous day because the Lord gave us back another baby in return. So now we have baby Jackson, and he is 2.5, and he'll be 3 in July, this coming up July.
So it seems like you have had multiple seasons in your life and multiple stories. So another
Yes.
story we want to hear is even before that, to become the person that you became. There's a couple things I want to touch on. So how did you get into competing and how did you get into owning a gym?
Oh, okay. So, well, if we back it up to competing, that started in 2012. And I actually had graduated college, and my cheerleading coach, I cheered in college, and my cheerleading coach was like, Amber, have you ever done pageants? And I was like, no, I've never done pageants. And she said, you should try it out. So, long story short, I had started competing, and I was supposed to go do Miss United States, but I was in my early 20s, and had graduated college in 2008, which was like the recession. And so there was no money. I was like managing a tanning salon. And so I was supposed to, long story short, I was supposed to compete for Miss South Carolina. My coach at the time, I told him, I was like, I'm not going to be able to afford to do this. And he said, have you ever thought about bodybuilding? And I was like, oh, no, I don't want to look like that. I don't want to be a bodybuilder. And he was like, no, they have a bikini division. And so I started competing in 2012. And then I met Brian at the end of 2012, and he competed. And I didn't know that at the time. And then so when we got together in 2012, that was something that we did together. And so we found a need in our area that people needed coaches. And so that's kind of what led us into the coaching realm of bodybuilding and natural truth nutrition.
And then we have to hear about the beginning season of when you met Brian. Can you tell us about when you met?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love this story. So I was the sales manager for a local newspaper here in Augusta called the Metro Spirit. And he had just bought a bar on Central Avenue called Helga's. And I had walked in there one day to sell him advertising, and he bought it right away. I think he bought like the biggest package possible. And so we sat there and talked for like an hour and a half that day. And then week by week, I would have to sit down with him, and we'd have to talk about his ads and what we were going to run the next week. And we just established this amazing friendship and this bond. And it's funny because if you ask my mom, she'll tell you they were friends for a long time. So I had just gotten out of a relationship and I was like, oh, Brian's younger than me. So he's 2 years younger than me. And I was like, I'm not going to date somebody that's younger than me. I'm at a different phase in my life. I'm looking for somebody to get married and have babies. And Brian owns a bar. Like, this isn't going to work out. We can just be friends. It'll be fun and we'll hang out. And then, and shoot, I guess it was 8 months later, he was down on one knee with a ring. And and then got married in 2014. We competed together, had the business, didn't have kids till a little bit later. So we didn't have Caden until 5 years later, 2018. And then, our lives changed in 2020 forever.
So how did you go from your advertising business and him being involved in that to owning a gym?
Yeah, so we started. So he had owned fine lines. So he had the bar, and then while he had the bar, he also had Fine Lines Landscaping, and he had his buddies running it. And if you know anything about business, usually your friends running your business when you're not exactly a part of it doesn't always work out. And that's kind of how it happened
Yes.
with him. And so the landscape business had kind of failed. We both knew we didn't want to continue the bar. That's not really something we worked it together, but it's not really something we wanted to do. So we decided to pursue our passion. My passion has always been health and fitness and wellness. And as much as that is Brian's passion, he has always been a business mind, business owner. He wants to own his own business. I really had no need for that. I'm more of a sit back and just tell me what to do and I'll help you in any way I can. But I didn't think anyway, I really had the business mindset. And so I let him figure out all of that stuff. And then we had created an app that we were going to sell to a gym, and that we were going to be a part of this gym and create these meal plans for people. And again, the Lord works in mysterious ways. That was not the route that we were supposed to go. So we had some hurdles along the way of a gym owner. The one gym owner said yes. The other head of personal training said no. And so it was just one of those things where it didn't work out the way we thought it was going to work out. And so he pursued landscaping. I went into personal training and started coaching in that realm. And then I think he went to that summit. He went to the landscape summit. He was bound and determined he's going to sell this business. It's not going to work out. And I think he tried 4 or 5 times to put this business up for sale. And then I remember him coming to me one day. He said, I've been trying and trying to get rid of this business. And I think I'm supposed to be here. I think the Lord this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then I think he had gone to Augusta Lawn Care Summit. I think and I guess it was I can't remember how many years it's been. It's been a while now, though. But he went to that, and that changed his life forever. He came home so excited, and we talked about him, buying into the franchise, and it's been the best decision that he ever made. That he's made for our family, for both of us. And I think him being involved in Augusta and learning so much about business, I think has really helped him. And then, when it was time, when what happened to me with Sinless Sweets getting started, and he was trying to convince me to go out on my own, I was like, babe, I don't do that. I don't do business. I don't know anything about it. I said, I'll bake and then you do the business end of things. But really, now that I'm in it and we've been in it for 2 years, I like the business side of things. I never thought that I would. I'm not a numbers kind of girl. But when you put everything you have into your business, your savings, we took equity from our home. We got a business loan. I mean, when you put everything on the line, I think you look at business a little differently, but I think you have to do that, and whenever you start a business or whenever you buy into a business and it's yours, the great thing about that I love about Augusta is that you give people the steps that they need. You give them all the resources that they need. With Sinless Sweets, I felt like I was just kind of swinging, and we'll see what works and what doesn't work. But Brian, and his business sense and his business mind that he has really helped me develop into more of a business person, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so he made the decision to come to the summit, and that was one of our first. That was maybe our third summit that he came to. And it was
Mm-hmm.
our very first time that Mike was going to introduce the franchise that we had
Yeah.
started it. And Mike's attitude was if 10 people believe in me and join, I'm just going to cry. And
Yeah.
so that was we did a dinner at the very end, and Jeremy was there with Brian. Jeremy is the GM with Brian, or I don't even know if
Mhm.
you called him the GM then. They were running the business together.
Yeah.
And Brian had planned to quit, except that he had Jeremy there. And they weren't sure what all they were going to do for the future. But they came, Brian said, just to learn about P for P. And then they planned to go home and implement that. Well, at that conference, Mike had invited anybody who was interested to come to the dinner afterwards to learn about the franchise. And I told Brian, I'm like, oh, please come to the dinner. I would love to have you there just to
Yeah.
listen and just to come to dinner. We'd love to have you for dinner because we didn't know how many people would show up, if it would just be a few. So he said, yeah, yeah, we'll come to the dinner. He signed up and everything. And at the end, he and Jeremy had talked and they had decided, no, we got this ourselves. We're going to go back and introduce P for P. We're good. And we learned enough that we can handle all this ourselves. And that's what he told me. Well, a few weeks ago, we had to laugh because he said, I'll never refuse a dinner again. I could have got to be in the first 10 franchises that joined, but who would have known, that there were people like that would believe in Mike um,
Mm-hmm.
almost blindly, except that he had vetted himself throughout the years being on the podcast.
Right.
So Brian came again. Well, first of all, I saw these two guys in orange from Fine Lines Landscaping, and they were sitting in the front, and they were from Augusta, Georgia. And
Mm-hmm.
I told Mike, I see these two guys on the front row, and I really, really think that they would be great with us. And I had already
Mm-hmm.
talked to them a little bit on the weekend. And so he's like, well, when we got back home, they didn't come to the dinner. And I'm like, can I have their emails? Can I email them and try to get them to come? He goes, if you can talk those guys into coming, I'll buy you a truck. And I'm like,
Okay.
I'm like, those 2 guys have to be a part of Augusta Nation. So I was like, I'm gonna buy a Toyota Tacoma. It's my 3-year game plan to buy
I
one.
love it.
And I was gonna save for 3 years so I could pay cash for it. Well, it ended up that we sold the franchise to them. I bought a used truck. It would hardly cost anything. And he paid for that truck for me. I bet Brian and Jeremy don't even know that.
I
But it
was
was
gonna say, I don't think they know that.
no, it was so exciting that they ended up joining, and I just knew they would be such a wonderful addition to Augusta Nation. And so I know that Brian had the growth I've seen in him is phenomenal. And
Mm-hmm.
he had shiny object syndrome. And we've talked about that on the other podcast with him and the other show, which people should listen to from you and him. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's why he's had all these businesses. And so my questions for today are really your involvement with him in Augusta and then his excitement to start all these businesses and that we can do all this at the same time. And what were your feelings when he actually bought into it? Like what was the conversation between you two and how did you come on board with the idea that he's already got a business? Why does he need to join a franchise?
I felt like the one thing I loved when he came back was this light that he had in his eyes, and that had been gone for so long. Because, and you probably know this, but the backstory behind Fine Lines is it was just this revolving door of employees, and he was working so hard, and he is one of the hardest workers that I've ever met in my life, and to see him day after day just put everything he had into it and then it not work out the way he wanted it to, it was almost like it was just he had this defeated look in his eyes, and that's, as a wife and a partner, that's very hard to see in a spouse,
Yes.
you know what I mean, because you want them to be happy and you want them to love what they're doing. And I knew he loved business, but I had kind of started to doubt, like, maybe landscaping is not what you're meant to do. Maybe, I know you want to do business, maybe it's something else, and And I think the reason I thought that was because I wanted him to be happy, and I saw that this is not where what he was happy doing anymore. But when he went to the summit and came back, that's when I saw this light and this excitement, and he was like, babe, I think this is going to work, And so when he comes home and he had that light and he had that fire, I, I really, it was a no brainer for me to just, you know, what's the word? Support him in whatever he was, whatever he wanted to do. And then he's like, we're going to need so much amount of money to do it. And I said, well, do you have that in fine lines? Like, do we need to pull from our personal? And, it's always a little scary whenever
Yes.
you're investing in something. And it was the same way with me with Sinless Sweets. I mean, again, whenever you put everything you have into it, and we were newly married, we didn't have much of a savings. We didn't have any kids. Well, we may have had a baby at the time.
You did.
Okay, yeah. So we may have had a new baby at the time. All of those are scary things. But to see that fire that he had and to see the organization that Augusta had, it made me feel better as a spouse, being like, okay, well, these people know what they're doing. If you buy into this and you run it the way they're telling you to run it, you're gonna do great. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You have all the resources that you need. And so for me, I was like, just do it. Just go for it and let's pull the trigger and let's see what happens. And it can only get better, right? Like it can't get any worse than it was. And so he did. So he did it. He joined, and it was honestly the best decision that he made. And it again, it's hard, especially when you're on a very minimal income. I was just doing personal training, so I wasn't getting paid a whole lot of an hour. We had a baby. We were getting ready to start paying for childcare, which is super expensive. So, anybody who is out there listening, if you're a spouse and you're in the same shoes that I was in, honestly, it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you are a business owner and you're out there struggling and you're kind of fumbling for what works and what doesn't work, or you see this overturn of employees and you're not really getting to where you need to get, invest in something that they already have tried. They've already tried all these things out. You're buying into a company that knows what they're doing and is going to give you all of the resources to help. And I think that's what was, for me, a spouse, very reassuring, is that Augusta was established. You know what I mean? And they had a plan, and they knew what they were doing. And I think for me, that's probably what made me feel better, versus him doing it on his own.
Yeah, so then when somebody buys into the franchise, they come here and we do training with them to get them started.
Mhm.
So, what were your thoughts on that? Like him going for 4 days for this training and then coming back
Yeah.
and getting started. Was he overwhelmed when he came back? The CRM that he was in, the whole brand to change, did that cause him some pause?
I think for a second it did, because he had built and started Fine Lines. You know what I mean? From the ground up, he had bought it from another guy and had really built it to a point that he thought was succeeding, only to find out that there were some things that maybe he wasn't necessarily doing right that caused him to kind of fall back. It was almost like he would get 5 steps forward, and then 3 steps back, and then 2 steps forward, and then 1 step back. It was never really proceeding, going the way that it needed to go in order for him to profit. So when he went and found out all of this information, I would have to say that he probably did for a second. It was like, I'm about to change everything. But I think it was only for a brief second, because he was so excited after going through the training and feeling like he had the tools that he needed to succeed. I think was a whole different ball game for him. It was a pause, but it was an excitement of doing. Now, it's not easy, right? Like whenever you take one brand, you got to contact all of your clients and rebrand. But it didn't take long for everybody to kind of jump on board. And by that time he had Jeremy, and I always tell people Jeremy is such a godsend, because he was Brian's right hand man for a long time. And to go from that to now Jeremy is co-owner in one of the franchises that they just bought, the North Augusta one. is really, it's just really special to watch both of them grow, and to
Mhm.
see where they started and then where they are now.
So when you started baking, first of all, can you tell our listeners what Sinless Sweets is? Like, what are the ingredients in these products, and why do you call them sinless?
Yeah, so we take your favorite breakfast and dessert items and we make the healthy version of them. So all of our stuff is keto, low carb, sugar free. Most of it's gluten free, and then we also offer dairy free and vegan options. And so basically, there's no bakeries, which I have found out recently in the United States, that are allergy friendly bakeries. So we, for people who are diabetic, they can come into our shop or get stuff shipped now. We started shipping in the new year, but for people who have celiac, who have gluten intolerances, for people who are diabetic, for kids that have like egg allergies, dairy allergies, soy allergies, we provide birthday cakes for them. So our slogan is treats without the cheat. So now you can enjoy your favorite sweet treats without all of the guilt of the carbs and the sugar. Or if you're just looking because you have a celiac disease, or you have a mom or dad or even son, or daughter with, diabetes, our products are diabetic friendly. We use strictly Swerve, so it's the only sweetener that's not chemically enhanced. It's an all natural sweetener, so it doesn't spike A1C levels in diabetics, which allows diabetics to be able to enjoy our sweets as well. But I think that came from the healthy baking. Like, I've always loved desserts. I've always loved to bake. And so my favorite part of Sinless Sweets is the creative end and taking these everyday recipes and being able to convert them to be sinless.
Yes, so you were into baking, but
Mm-hmm.
after he bought the franchise, had you already officially started a business?
No, no. So he bought the franchise. So when did he buy in? Was it 2017, 18?
I
Do you
am not
remember?
sure. I should have
I
looked
know
that
it's.
up.
I should know. I don't know. It was in the earlier years of 17, 18, because I know Caden was born in 18. But no, Sinless Sweets. The idea for Sinless Sweets didn't even start until the miscarriage. Like, after I had the miscarriage, and then that's when Brian was like, babe, you should start this business. And I was like, I don't know about that. Like, I'm not a business person. And he's like, you really have something here. He said, there's nobody in Augusta that does this sort of thing. And then we started doing our research, and there's only a handful of us in the United States, period, storefronts, that even exist. And then I just had a client. It's they own a company in Connecticut, and they work with families with dementia and Alzheimer's. And they had just reached out to me recently, and we just sent all of their families Christmas presents, and that was we shipped them across the United States. But I didn't realize until they called me that we were the only allergy friendly bakery in the United States, period. I
Amazing.
had no idea until they told me. I was like, oh yeah, there's a handful of us. And she goes, no. She said, we looked. She said, there's a handful of low carb keto bakeries. She's like, but what you do is so different, and you work with all these allergies with, dairy, eggs, soy. She said, there's nobody else out there that does that. And I thought that was really neat, because she told me that, and I didn't even know. So
So I have to ask then, for them to actually reach out for their patients with dementia, what did they think that would solve by having Sinless Sweets? Could they not? Did they feel like they couldn't feed them sugar?
yeah.
Typically, when they have dementia, they just give them whatever they want just to get them to eat.
Right. So this company works with the caregivers, which is the people who are taking care of the dementia and
Okay,
Alzheimer's. And so they work with a best-selling author who has written all of these books on dementia and Alzheimer's. And basically, what in this book it's saying that what you feed them has a direct effect
definitely.
on their health, and and how they proceed, especially when they're taking these certain medications and stuff. And so they have found that all natural ingredients that the ones like I use, like the dairy free butter, or the almond flour, coconut flour, gluten free flour. We don't use any soy in our products. Everything is baked fresh. So I guess this doctor has found that there is a direct link to eating healthy and, obviously being healthier in the long run.
Yes. So can you share who that author is in the book? Because I'm going to get asked.
Yes, absolutely. So let me just look up um, as well. So the company that I have been working with is called Age Well Simply, and they have a website, agewellsimply.com. And it's Tim and his wife Carrie Rutland that I have been dealing with. Let me see the
While you're looking
author.
that up,
Yeah.
many people, even in Augusta, and business owners have family members that have dementia, and it's a very stressful and heavy burden. And there is so many studies about the cognitive decline and how keto itself is such a benefit. But I know that the struggle is when they have dementia. They're wanting the sweet things. That's exactly what they are
Mhm.
craving. That's all they want. They want to refuse the other foods that are new. And I can see that your product would make them feel like they were still having mom's cake or what they
Yes.
remember having, but without the sugar. So the decline can be worked into the other treatment plans to either halt, and I've seen it halt with
Hmm.
glutathione and things like that, and almost reverse some of their symptoms because they've eliminated the sugar and all those things that cause their allergies.
Oh yeah. So Alzheimer's and dementia runs in my family. So my grandfather on my mom's side, which is my mom's dad, died of Alzheimer's, and then my grandmother on my dad's side had dementia. So I've gotten to see both ends, and it's never easy to watch a loved one go
Nope.
through that. But if you are, I would, I'll put a plug in for Timothy and Carrie. If you are struggling with that, they work with families and are really great about walking you through the steps of how to deal with that. Super sweet couple. The doctor is Dr. Bredesen. It's Bredesen. Bredesen. He is the book is called End of Alzheimer's, and it's a New York Times bestseller. Um, and it's called the Bredesen Protocol. Is if you want to look it up, that is. But the book is called The End of Alzheimer's.
Wonderful. So that'll be a
Mhm.
little side thing that business owners that are listening, if they're struggling with that, they can reach out for that.
Yes.
But back to you and Brian. So,
Yeah.
because he is so entrepreneurial, um, it's phenomenal that he's running his business. He's having the struggles. He also feels the pain of just losing the baby and watching you suffer is terrible.
Mhm.
But his whole approach to business would be different than yours. And so, did you almost get a little bit annoyed at him pushing on you? Did he say, "Oh, you need to listen to this podcast. Oh, you need to listen to mine," and all these things? Was that annoying to you?
It was so annoying. So I will tell you, I love my husband so much. But in as much as we are alike, we are very different in some ways. In that way that we are different is business. And I'm a little stubborn. And so I tend to just a tad bit. And I've always been like that my entire life. Like you can tell me something, but I have to experience it or I have to
Yeah.
go through it myself. And you just have to sit there and accept that about me. But and still, bless his bones, he still tries to get me to listen to these podcasts. And I'm explaining to him, I'm like, babe, I don't have the time to listen to, and he's like, you just need to make the time. But so yeah, there definitely was some headbutting, I guess you could call it, when I started my business. And as much as, because I didn't know anything about business. And so I'm listening to him, but then in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, you've never started a bakery. So this is different. But at the end of the day, I have to say, go on record, he was right. Business is business, regardless of what you were doing. Did you know that he tried to get me to do P for P at the bakery? I was like, no, I'm not doing that. He's like, I'm just
So, are
telling
you
you, if you
saying
listen to this podcast.
you will believe that it works in every service industry?
Yes, yes.
Did you try it?
No, I haven't. I haven't. I need to. I need to. But no, it's just one of the many things I have not listened to him on.
That's
But he's
definitely
probably right.
something. We had a company call us. They had a little store down in, I don't even remember what state it was, but one of our employees is a chef, and they had her come down there and help run their little drive-through and their
Yeah.
bakery and their whole thing. And she came back and she said, I need some books. I need something. They need to do P for P. And so Mike and I were like hashing it out. How do you do P for P when there's a drive through and they're baristas and you're trying to motivate them to upsell? But there has to be a way. There is a way, but I think it would just have to be restructured in some other way
Right.
for business owners such as yourself to buy it. And it would be
Hmm.
a ton of work to implement and to get 16, 18-year-olds to buy into this, but I'm telling you, it would make them better employees if you
I feel
could.
like it would. Yes. If they got paid based on their performance, I'm sure it would. I am sure
Yes,
it would.
because when you're not there, I there's a restaurant here that does all coffee and things like that, and they always say when you come through the driveway, "And what else can I give you?" And I'm like, "Oh,
Yes.
that's such an awesome way to upsell because then it causes pause for the customer. Maybe I do want a muffin with this coffee." And so there
That's
could be
absolutely right.
incentive if they would actually upsell just like we do treatments over the lawn
Hmm.
care, if they would upsell, there'd be a way we could implement P for P with the upsells.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So when you were here, you came for one of the summits
Yes.
last year, and I had a panel of wives, business owners that were in all states of support for their husbands that were in lawn care and
Hmm.
from Augusta. So it was a good variety. And I had kind of went off the questions that we were going to ask, and I specifically asked, "Do any of you listen to podcasts or anything like that?" And afterwards, Brian's like, "You have got to get Amber to listen to Layla Harmozy." He said, "I think she's a lot like her. I think that she would learn so much from her." And he's like, "She just won't." And so,
Stubborn. Stubborn.
yes. So I don't know if you ever started listening to Alex and Layla at all, did you?
So he cornered me on a plane to where were we? We were flying. Shoot, it might have been to no, New York. It was New York when I went to go film the pilot for my TV show. He had just gotten the Layla and what's her husband's name? Mark
Alex Hermosi.
Alex. Yes. Had gotten their book and
Yes.
and he was like, he's like, just put this earbud in. He goes, it's a long flight. It was good. I'm not gonna lie, it was really good. But halfway through, I'm like sleeping
Sound
on the
asleep.
plane, sound asleep. And he's like, "Did you hear that last part?" And I was like, "Yeah, yes, I did. I did hear that last part." And he's like, "No, you didn't. You were sleeping." And I was like, "I'll listen to it again. I swear." But he did corner me, and the podcast really isn't bad. I can't listen to somebody who's like monotone. So the one really good thing I really like about Alex is he's like Mike. He's very expressive when he talks, and so that I can get behind, and that I can listen. But I can't just listen to like a monotone. Like he like listens to these podcasts and these books like on fast forward times four, and I'm like, how do you even comprehend what they're saying? And he's like, I can just listen really fast.
Yeah, you train
I am
yourself
not
to
like
do
that.
that with Audible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
the interesting thing about Alex and Layla is they also have the same coach as Mike, so Dr. Kashi, and Dr. Kashi has
Oh,
been coaching them about their delivery. So Alex used to be pretty harsh, and Layla used to be very monotone and just like cut and dry.
right.
And they I've seen them just change in their delivery. It's been pretty
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal, but I know they're being coached at least 1 or 2 times a week by Dr. Kashi.
Yes, and that's who Mike gets. Mike's
Yes,
great. He's a great public speaker. He's
Yeah,
very
so
interesting to listen to.
yes, so he is writing a book right now with Dr. Kashey, and the same thing. It was Dr. Kashey who had Alex rewrite that book 19 times. Like he just tore it up and made him work really hard. And it's a book that I even enjoyed, not in that space where Alex is, but the way it was written, I
Yes.
enjoyed reading it. So
All of the I like all his drawings. Like that's
yes.
what kind of broke up the monotony for me was the drawings in the book. And I was like, "Oh, okay, I can see this." Yeah.
Yes, for sure. So this is an interesting point that we brought up here is that you both have separate businesses. You have separate styles of running your business. So when
Mhm.
you started up, how did it work with him and Augusta? So he obviously was generous enough to say it's not all about me. You shouldn't be doing anything but supporting me. You need to come over here and learn the business. You need to help me at home. You need to help me run routes. Jeremy and I can't do everything. And did he involve you in any, like, did he just talk about Augusta or any of that, or did he keep it totally separate and keep it all to himself?
So he would come home at night and talk to me about it. And of course we talked several times throughout the day, and he would I would ask how his day is going, and we talk landscape and we talk business, but my role really was helping him before Augusta. So I was out on the truck with him, weed whacking and mowing and throwing, what do you call it, mulch or pine straw into beds. So I helped him before Augusta, and then by the time he had come to Augusta, he had Jeremy. So my role was kind of just more of a step back, and I'm at home listening and supporting and whatever I can do to help. But no, he knew that I'm not that I was never into in the nicest way possible. I wasn't into landscaping. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, that wasn't going to be a job for me to do, was to
Mm-hmm.
quit my job and come and run the books for him. Or that was he knew that about me. He knew that was not my thing. That's not what I wanted to do. I was not a numbers person. I support you in whatever you want to do, and I'm here when you need me. But I think he knew that me being a part of the business, that I wanted my own thing, and I wanted to do something else. So he never pressured me to come over and try to do that. I think if anything, he really wanted me to do my own thing because it was something that we could we could share but also be different with. You know what I mean? Like if I
Yes.
had my own business, we can talk business, but it's not the same. You know what I mean? So for us in our marriage, I don't think it would have been beneficial for me to come and work for him, especially with some of the employees he had at the time. I would be like, oh no, we are not putting up with that. Like, that's not how
Yes.
this is going to work. He has a lot more patience than I do when it comes to dealing with his employees. Like he comes home and tells me stories, and I'm like, you need to let me go up there, and I need to. And he's like, this is why you don't come up here. And I was like, yeah, that's probably for the best. So we have two very different styles of coaching. We have two different styles of being business owners. But I'll be honest with you, at the end of the day, I would have never taken that leap and would have never started the business if it wasn't for Brian, for sure, and him pushing me to just to go and do my own thing, for
So
sure. But no, it was never.
you would agree that then that every couple has to handle this differently and the way
Yes.
their own styles are. Recently, we had one of our franchisees. So, of course, he's a business owner, and he and his wife. She was very supportive of him. They both finished college. They were ready to roll. 100% supportive of him and all the hours that we have to put in when we grind. It's kind of like for the guy. Honey, it's going to be crazy for the next 9 months. It's our busiest season, and I'm going to be a little detached, and I'm going to need you to put out a little more with the kids and to help support a little more. It's for the whole family, right? It's our bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
And in the seasons of life, he had a whole bunch of support from her. And then now she's ready to have a family and settle down. And she's not as driven with the business anymore. And so he's like, I don't think divorce is in the cards yet. He said, but she's not supporting it like she used to. And I don't know if this is going to work. And Mike's like, whoa, wait a minute. This is awesome. She's not pressuring you to stop. She's not pressuring you to back off. She's not pressuring you to stay home more. She's just asking to have this other direction and still support you, but she's ready to have a family. He said, you should be thanking God that she feels that way and isn't actually having the attitude, honey, you're never home, you're never helping.
Mm-hmm.
And she's supporting that still. So Mike was telling the differences are a gift to you, really.
They
And
are.
so you can't compare to other business owners. Nobody can compare to you and Brian and your specific personalities and how you roll. And running a business for the wife is not always the thing, but she can still support being at home with the kids.
Right. Well, and so one thing that I saw whenever I came to the summit was there are a lot of wives who are very involved in their husband's the business. They run the books, they run the office. And I think that's great. I also think that's two different personalities than Brian and I, or like you said, the other couple that you're speaking of. I think that you can be supportive and that you can love your spouse through all the rough seasons, and with him not being home and in the long hours of landscaping, especially when you first get started. They leave before the sun comes up and don't get home until
Hmm.
the sun comes down. I can see that as a mom or a new mom, that can be challenging, but you just have to have faith and trust that your husband's doing what he needs to do for the business, so that's not always he's not always having to hit the ground running. I mean, where Brian is now in the business is amazing. I mean, he's home at 5:30. The kids are getting to an age where they're going to start sports. He'll be able to come and do those things, but he had to put in a lot of time and effort to get to where he is. And I think because he's done that, and I've seen him do that, and we've gone through it together already. The interesting thing about Sinless Sweets is our busy seasons are opposite. So it works out really well. So the summer is my slow time, and then the fall and winter are my busiest times. So it works out really well when it comes to business as far as having a family and the kids. But when I first started that business and I was working 12 and 13-hour days with a newborn, I mean, it takes a strong spouse at home to really jump in and help and understand, because he could have very well been like, well, you're gone 12 and 13 hours a day, and we've got this newborn, and you need to be at home more. And he was nothing like that. And I think it's because he has the mindset that he has, and he has the business mindset, and he knows what it takes to grow a business. He knew that it was a new business, and I had to put the time in, just like he did. And so it
Hmm.
was it worked out really well. It worked out really well for us. But
So
but
did
like
you
you said,
lay out?
every couple's different.
Yeah. So did you lay out your big picture goals? And was that is what's helped you both in the businesses? So was the goal to get Brian completely out of the business and working on the business? Or what did you two establish to help you in these really challenging times of both starting a business from scratch?
Yeah, so with Brian, his goal was to always eventually step out of the business. He loves coaching. That's one thing he's really good at it. Like talk the way he talks to these guys, and the way he challenges them to be better. That's what he loves to do. I mean, don't get me wrong, he likes landscaping, he likes, the estimating, but at the end of the day, his goal is to really step back and kind of be over everything to where he can jump in and help. And I think as every business owner, that should be their goal. There's a time in business where you're in the everyday grind, and you're grinding it out, and you have the long hours, and you have the ups and downs and the highs and lows. But at the end of the day, there should be an end goal, right? And the end goal should not be the hustle and bustle of everyday life. It should be to where you get to a point where your business is sustainable without you. And that was hard for me when he was trying to explain that to me, because I very much love my job, and I very much love being in the everyday,
Yes.
hustle and bustle. But you can't grow your business when you're inside of your business. You have
Yes.
to be able to step back and let the business run, and you train your employees to run the business when you're not there, so that you can go out and you can grow. And that was something that's been hard for me this last year learning, was that I needed to be able to take a little bit of a step back to be able to grow versus being so much in it. But I'm a very hands-on person. And so I'm one of those people that, like, I'm like, well, what's going to happen if I'm not there? It's
Yes.
like, that's how it should be. Eventually that's how it should be. And I'm like, but I like going to work every day and I want to go to work. And he's like, you can still go to work, but you're not needed at work. You can focus on growing and doing other things. So that's been a transition that I'm working through personally. But yeah, it's crazy because I think this coming up year, he told me it's the last year that he's going to be estimating, and then he's going to be able to
How
take a step
exciting.
back. Super exciting for him. I'm very excited for him. I've always seen him working so hard, and I know he will continue to work hard.
Yes.
That's not it, but it's going to be a very different role in the company than he's ever had before.
So tell us about how it started with you having employees, kind of your feelings and objectives when you had your first employee, and where are you now in your role with employees?
Yeah, so I started with it was just me when I started, and then I had hired my I call her my right hand girl. Her name was Patty. She was an Italian baker, and she was great. She actually lives in Seattle right now. When I went
Sweet.
to the summit, I got to go and see her. Her husband's in the army, but she was with me the whole first year, and it was a learning experience together. I taught her everything that I knew, and then, she was really good about coming up with ideas. And so her and I partnered really well together. And then she was moving. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Now it's just me again. And Brian was like, well, now you're in the position. Sinless Sweets is doing a little bit better. Now you need to hire. And I was like, well, I don't know if I can afford to like hire more than one person. He goes, I'm telling you, you're going to need more than one person. And so I hired Catherine, who is my manager now, and she has been with me. May will be 3 years. So she started with me out of my home, and then she's been there through every
Sweet.
step of the way. Yeah, so she's my Jeremy, I call her. And so she's the one who runs the ship when I'm not there. But she's great. And so then from Catherine, I hired another baker because I learned very quickly that two people cannot run an entire storefront. And so
Yes.
then I had to hire my upfront girls. And so I went from one employee to now I have 6 employees who run it. And now we'll probably be hiring more this coming up year because the shipping has really taken off. And so I need somebody specifically just to kind of handle the shipping side of things.
So, how has it been for you having to go from by yourself to a position of leadership and coaching, like Brian has to do, over your
Mhm.
6 employees?
Yeah, so it's different. I'm a mom, and so I try to not have the mom vibe, but it's
Yes.
hard when you're a female in business, so we coach differently than a man does. And
Hmm.
and we and it's different because all of my employees are females, and some of them are moms, some of them just graduated high school. So I have these employees that are of all different ages, and I'm learning that I have to coach them differently. I can't
Yes.
coach the same, different personalities, different phases of life that they're in. And so, I had one employee who has since become a mom for the first time. And so, she's a dear friend of mine, and I'm helping her being the first time mom things. But then it's hard because if something happens at work or she doesn't necessarily do what I need her to do, or she's slacking, I have to talk to her in a different way
Yes.
than I would talk to my 18-year-old. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And so it's very different. And I think part of being a coach is learning your employees and learning there's a boundary, and
Yes.
there's a line. And I think for women in business, or myself in particular, I have a hard time with the friend line and a boss line, because I want them to like me and I want to be their friend, and I want us to have fun working together. But at the end of the day, it's my business. And if they don't do what they're supposed to do, I have to reprimand them for that. And sometimes that's hard for me because I don't like people being mad at me and I don't want,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? But as a business owner, you have to, it's your name and your business at the end of the day, and you have to do what's in the best interest for your company. And I've had to let go of people that it was really hard for me to let go, but
Yes.
they couldn't do the job the way it needed to be done. And at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do. So,
So when you have this friend that is having a new baby, you're coaching her through that, and then she doesn't
mhm,
show up because she had a rough
mhm,
night, she's expecting that you're going to be okay with that as her friend who's
right.
coached her through having a baby and all of that kind of thing. How do you keep that separated? That I'm sure that particular relationship was a learning experience, but would you hire a friend again?
So the one thing about her was her and I were not friends before I hired her.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
had become friends, especially with her being a first time mom and being pregnant. She didn't have any friends who had been pregnant
I
before. So I
see.
was so that's how we kind of developed, more of a close knit friendship than just a working friendship.
Mhm.
Um, but it is hard. And it's like you said, I've actually dealt with that same exact situation. And I have to explain to her, I try to lead by example, right? Like I'm a
Right.
mom of two and I'm a business owner. And at the end of the day, yes, we are tired. I still have a 2.5 year old that's not sleeping through the night. But at the end of the day, this is your job and this is how you provide for your family. And you have to show up in order to get paid. And you have to show up in order to provide for your family. So yes, we may be tired or we may be on the struggle bus because our kid is sick, and I'm really good about letting them, go to doctor's appointments. And if you have a sick kid, I'm really good about working around all of that because I am a mom and I do understand that. But yeah, at the end of the day, you have to kind of explain to them that, listen, this is your job, and if you don't do your job, then I'm going to have to find somebody who can. and
Yes.
that's and that's a very hard conversation to have with somebody, because you don't want to put them in the situation where they feel like they're choosing between their family and their work. That's never what you want them to do. You want to be I want to be an understanding boss, and I want to let them know, like, hey, I am here for you. We can work through whatever it is you're going through, but you got to show up. You got to show up, and we will fix whatever we need to fix. But you still gotta come to work, and we have to work through it.
Have you had to put yourself in a place where you've had to press yourself to learn the money side and the employment side? So, for instance, even with the employees, do you feel like you have to overhire, even though you can't really afford it for the times when the employees are asking to be out? Like you have 6 people. So, the person that's left on the front line to handle everything, you can't leave them in that position because they're going to quit if their other person keeps calling out. They
Right.
can't handle that. So, have you had to hire the 6 to buffer for when the other people are gone?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I just had to hire. So I had lost an employee. She went back to nursing school, and I asked my other two employees, because there was four of us bakers, including myself, and then I had the two girls up front. And I had said to the girls, I said, we can do this one or two ways. I said, I can get in here with you, and we can bust this out to the end of the year, and I can give you a raise to make it worth your while, and us have to work a little bit longer. I said, I can hire somebody. And funny story. So they ended up taking the raise, like, no, we can handle it. We can handle it. Well, then I left for 2 days. And it was very evident that it takes 3 people to run that shop. And they were extremely stressed out. And I came back and I said, well, this proves my point. Like, we have to hire somebody. We can't just have us three, because at some point we all have kids, and at some point somebody's going to call out. And with me being gone, it's showing you girls that 2 people, 2 bakers I should say, can't run this entire storefront. So now I need to hire. And so that was a learning experience for me, because I was like, you know what, we can make this work. We don't need to hire. We can. But then when I left, I realized, oh, they can't. And it's not that they couldn't do it without me. They couldn't do it without a third person. They
Yes.
needed the extra help. And so now that was a lesson I had to learn. And so now I do overhire. Yes.
So this is an experience for the guys that are running these franchises and landscape businesses. So now they've raised base pay. Now you've
Mhm.
given them a raise because that's what they chose, but did you retract the raise?
No, I didn't. I felt like I wanted to because I was like, you told me you could handle it. But no, I stuck to my word. I stuck to my word. I gave them the raise, but I also sat down with both of those girls and was very upfront about the business. And I said, listen, now it's the time for me to be an open book with you because I gave you this raise and now I'm having to hire somebody else. This is where we're at the end of the year, and this is where we need to raise money, and this is where we need to save money. And so I think it was very eye-opening for me as a business owner, but also for my two head girls to see, hey, listen, Amber, really, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Like, and she just gave us this raise. What can we do to to help save money, or what can we do to cut costs here and there? And so I think it was beneficial for all of us to really sit down. I am just now learning the payroll tax, like because I have somebody who does like all my tax work, but I'm just now learning what all of that means. I mean,
Yes.
really, like the payroll taxes and what I get paid and owners draws. I mean, this is all new for me because I will be honest with you. The first year I was in business, I told Brian, I said, I need you to handle, if you can, I need you to handle the business side of things and just let me bake and try to grow this thing as much as I
Yes.
can grow it.
Yes.
So for the whole first year, that's all I did. He handled the money side of things, the business side of things, made sure all the bills were paid, and I just got in there and did what I was good at. Now the second year, I'm the one meeting with the accountant. I'm the one learning the payroll taxes and the owner draws and what we're spending monthly. And so that has been a very an eye-opening experience for me. And there's a lot of things I learned this year that I would do the same, but I would also change going into the new year for sure.
I'm assuming when you were gone, they were working overtime. So once you gave them these raises, hired another person that they
Mm-hmm.
needed for support, were you able to cut the overtime though to kind of make up for that loss?
Yes, absolutely. So I was able to actually save money on my payroll because now that I have hired somebody, even though I had to add somebody to my payroll, the hours are a lot less. So our girls get paid, like my manager gets paid 19 an hour, my head cake designer gets 17 an hour, and then any of my new hires start at like 14 or 15, and then they have the opportunity to move up. But when you've got people that you're paying 19 and $17 an hour and they're working overtime, that is gonna cost me. But now that I've hired somebody, the time that they're in the kitchen is less. So I guess more so it balances out at this point.
What's your minimum wage there?
I think our minimum wage is like 850 maybe,
So
825,
they're being
850.
paid way above average.
And in the baking industry, way above average. In the baking industry, your front desk girls make $9 an hour. My front desk girls coming in make 13. And then, your managers of a bakery maybe getting paid 15. Mine gets paid 19. So I pay more. But here's what I've learned too, that when you pay more and you show your employees that you appreciate them, the turnover rate is not as high. You know what I
That's what
mean?
I
Like
found too.
you really get loyal employees who know that you care about them, that they understand you have their best interest at heart, and that they're growing this business with you. And I tell the girls that all the time, like, this is not just me. Like, us growing this business is for all of us. The more money
Hmm.
that the business brings in, the more money that you guys get paid, and that leads to bonuses and all kinds of other stuff. But if I don't have my stuff in order and the business is not making the money that it needs to make, then we're all going to be out of a job. And
Hmm.
that's not what we want. You know what I mean? But it's a lesson that I'm learning too, about pay and all that kind of stuff. I've been a manager in my previous life when I was in sales, but I've never owned my own company. And so it is very new. So I'm sure it probably works the same way as somebody buying into the Augusta franchise. They may have started a small little a little landscaping company, but they want to grow it. Now they're stepping into Augusta, which is a big company. And I think the lucky thing for them is that you guys have all of these tools and training and education for them. And here I am having to learn on my own. I wish there was somebody who had done this before me, but where I'm at in the baking field and this being such a new thing, the healthy baking, the keto, the low carb, there's really nobody else out there for me to model after in this particular sense. There's other bakeries that I could model after, but it's very different. The products that we use, the cost of goods, what an average baker can do, flour, sugar, and butter, and they may be able to make a recipe for $5 where I'm having to use almond flour, coconut flour, ghee, dairy-free butter. My products may cost me 15 to make. So
Yes,
there,
yes.
so that's also something, that I'm learning. But hopefully one day, by the time we're ready to open up a second location, all of this will be worked out, all the bugs will be worked out, and it'll be smooth sailing the second time.
There's a whole nother angle and avenue that comes up in these things, and that's your personal interests, like the things you're
Mhm.
really passionate about besides the business. Can you tell us about your competing and getting back into the bodybuilding pageant space with all of this going on for the both of you and how you both have handled this?
Yeah, so it's been hard. I'm not gonna lie. So I've been competing off and on since 2012, and Brian was along that journey with me for a very long time. After we had Caden, I still competed, and that was Caden. Caden was he was such an easy baby, girl. He would go to these bodybuilding competitions, and he would just be enamored and just sit there and watch. And then I was working at the gym, which had childcare. So with our first child and Brian and I both competing, we could still make it work. But then when he had gotten into Augusta and I was going through starting the business, going through the miscarriage, us talking about having a second child, by the time I started competing again, it was now not just one baby, but now it was okay, my husband has a business, I have a business. Now we have two babies, and I'm still trying to figure out how to keep some sense of me. Like, because when you're a mom, you give and give and give, and there's very little time for you as a mom. And I feel like in order for me to be a good mom and a good wife, I have to make, even if it's just 30 minutes a day, I have to make that time for just me. And so, sometimes it comes with mom guilt because I have to drop the boys off a little bit early at school to get in my 30 minutes of gym time. But I feel like that's my outlet. I think everybody has an outlet of how they relieve stress.
Hmm.
And what makes them feel better. And this is mine. And Brian knows that. And it's also his. So now we're having to come up with a schedule where he gets up at 4 a.m. and goes to the gym. And then when he comes home to get ready for work, I go to the gym. So we both have the gym out of the way by 6:30 in the morning. And then we can go on with our businesses. We can go on with our boys. And then by the time we pick up the boys from school, we have our normal life of bedtime, bath time, dinner, and all that stuff.
Hmm.
But I do still compete. It's definitely harder than it was. I usually compete about 2 or 3 times a year. So starting next week, I will start gearing up for the competition season. I try to compete in the spring because it's before the summer. So we can do stuff with the boys and go on vacations and all that kind of stuff. But it definitely is. It's definitely challenging, especially when you have two, and then you have a husband who also that's his passion as well. So we have to stay on a very strict schedule. Brian's really specific about our 9 o'clock bedtime every night. So
That's good. But what you're experiencing is completely different than absolutely different than any guy would experience. Number one, it's not like kayaking or something where you can go compete with a team and it doesn't matter how you look, like you're in a uniform, you're in a kayak, but this is
mhm.
completely different. You just had two babies. Your hormones are crazy. Your body's trying to get back to normal, and then you have to put all this effort in to compete with other people that probably have not had kids. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain level you absolutely have to be in these
Yes.
competitions, not only competing, but to win any
Mm-hmm.
kind of placing. How has that been for you, like emotionally and all of those things? Because you have to have time to work out. It's not like you can go, okay, today doesn't matter. Has it been like
Right.
70% diet and 30% working out? Or how do you make that happen?
So it's hard because you have to put, like you said, you have to put so much time into the gym. You have to put so much time into prepping your food, packing your meals. I mean, it's when you leave for the morning, you have to have everything set. Like you have to have all of your meals divvied out. You've got to know what time you got to be in a place where you can eat. There's been so many times I'm shoveling tuna packets in my office at work because I have 5 minutes to eat before I have to move on to the next recipe that I'm doing. But yeah, it is very different. I think that for moms in particular, we experience more of a mom guilt. At least I do. I feel bad because I'm dropping the kids off early for me to go to the gym, but it's like at the same time I know that like if I want to compete, that's what I have to do. And sometimes I feel selfish. Like I feel like maybe I shouldn't be doing competing anymore because that we are so busy with two businesses and both boys, and I don't want anything to suffer. I don't want to feel like I'm dropping the ball. But I mean, Liz, at the end of the day, it's very hard, and it's very time consuming, and it is a very selfish sport. And so I have to I have those days where I feel like, okay, I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this for the boys. Like they're seeing me be healthy. They're seeing their mom, go and work out and eat right. Um, but I try my best not to let it interfere with what they're doing. I would rather get up at 3 a.m. and pack my meals and go to the gym and do what I have to do so that at the end of the day, when I pick up the boys, I'm not taking them to a gym daycare, but I can bring them home and I can play with them. But it is challenging. And if it wasn't for Brian and him supporting me and him watching the boys and letting me go and do, it wouldn't happen. I can tell you that
Hmm.
right now. It would be very hard, very hard.
So you have all of this going on, and then we're going to add something else. And this
Yes.
something else is you have a TV show. So how did that come to be, and how is that going now?
Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. We have a film crew that comes down every Friday and films. We're actually filming our last 12th we're filming our 12th episode this coming up Friday. So that'll be the last of the 12 episodes. And then we'll see from there if we're going to do another 12 episodes or not. But it has been so much fun being able to just be in the kitchen. And if you've seen any of them, you've seen that I've had Brian on the show with me. I've had my mom. We just did a mother daughter nailed it challenge. It's hilarious to
So
watch.
cool.
And then I've had the boys on with me. I've had Caden on with me. So I've really tried to make it so people can see the other side of Sinless Sweets, and that it's not just a bakery, but I am a mom and I do have a family, and this is what it looks like in our kitchen at home. This is what we do, and so it's been a lot of fun. I love getting to share my recipes with other people so that people who can't come to Sinless Sweets or they don't live in the Augusta area, that they can do this kind of stuff at home in their own kitchen, or they can get their kids involved. And that eating healthy can be a family affair. It doesn't just have to be a mom or a dad, but you can teach everybody how to eat healthy, and the kids enjoy that kind of stuff too. You can make healthy breakfast cookies that the kids will like, but as a parent, you still know that they're getting bananas and oatmeal and peanut butter and good healthy foods rather than just gummies for
Yeah.
breakfast.
So how did that come to be? Did you see an ad somewhere? Did a TV
No,
company reach out to you?
yeah, so they have scouts apparently, and so they have people that they hire, or the different companies hire to scout and vet people who they think would do good on their show. So this was a cooking. It was called Eat This TV, and it was out of New York. And at first, I had gotten this email, and they said, this is, this is Todd Maynard from Eat This TV, and we are interested in working with you to create a television show. And I was like, oh, I don't
What a
know. This kind of
scam.
seems like, what a scam. This kind of sounds like spam. And Brian's like, well, why don't you just message them, call them, and just see? And so that's what we ended up doing. And long story short, they were sending over a contract. I was flying out to New York to film this pilot. And then the deal was, if the pilot gets picked up and it gets enough views, then we would be signed for a whole series, which was the 12 episodes. And so we did a turn and burn to New York. We got to experience New York for the day, and then got to film the TV show. Flew back that same day, and then the pilot aired, I think, 2 weeks later, and then we got picked up. And then now every Friday we film. But it's been a lot of fun. It's definitely hard work. It's harder than you would think it
I
is.
can imagine.
It is. It is. But we have a really great. I have a really great camera guy, Kyle Jones, and he's great. Him and his partner. Andrew come, and they set up all of the cameras and the TV, all the mics and stuff, and we bust out 2 episodes every week. So, and then
That's
he
great.
edits
And
them.
so you've
Yeah,
made it a family affair, so it wasn't
yeah.
like something totally separate that Brian and the boys couldn't be involved in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, especially too, whenever the TV network picked me up, they wanted it to be me teaching how to do kid-friendly recipes. So that's kind of where the idea came from. And so I was like, well, if this is what you're wanting, let me get my family involved in it, and let me show the viewers that you can do this at home with your kids. And so that's really what inspired the idea for Brian and the boys to start joining me in the kitchen. Plus, it's a lot more fun to have people in there with you than it is for me just to be talking, to a camera. I think
For
people like to
sure.
see the interaction, with me and my family. So,
Yeah. So to wrap up today, it really comes down to, are you and Brian better together when things get really rough? Tell us about when you get really low, when you've gone getting up at 3, doing all you're doing all day, giving out, giving out. What comes, how does it work in those moments when you're like really super mad, hormonal, and you both have it out? Like he's stressed, you're stressed. Do you work it out together, lay it all on the line, and then do you decide we're still better together, or how do you work that out?
yeah, so Brian and I, we fight very differently. I am a 0 to 60, da, 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 and he's more of a sit back, and he never yells. Like he's very even tone, and I'm very I get very excited, I guess you could say. And so because he is the way he is, and he fights the way he does, it kind of brings me back down. So it makes me not be so like irrational and hormonal.
Yes,
It kind of brings me back down. We definitely fight better together. That's for sure. At the end of the day, he's my person. And I know that I couldn't do life without him. And no matter how mad I get or how aggravated I get, I always know that he loves me through it. And he's really great about not holding a grudge. I'm a Taurus, so I tend to be a little bit more stubborn, and I need some space. I need some time. But he's really good about he's very level headed. And I guess that's, I think, what makes him a really good business person, and is he can kind of step outside of the situation and see. And I like to be right all the time. And so whenever we fight, he kind of lets me have my moment. And then he's like, "Are you done?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm done." And then
that's
we kind of
great.
we ration it out, and we move on. But yeah, it definitely helps if you have two people that are not like "Rah, rah, 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 rah," and you have, one that's more like, just say what you need to say, and then when you're done, now we can talk about it. But sometimes I just have to get my feelings out. It
Yeah,
just is what
that's
it
great.
is.
So this really speaks to Augusta Nation owners and any business owner on the guy's side. It could be a woman too, but listening to their partner, supporting their partner in what they're doing. Even for instance, this morning, it's a Saturday. Um, you have a million things going on. You forgot we were supposed to have an interview. I
Like
text
that.
Brian. I text Brian, and Brian goes, "She forgot. She's getting dressed." And and now we're having the interview, and he's somewhere with the kids. Like, he's so
Yeah,
supportive.
he's so great.
So and so if you tell that to Augusta Nation owner or business owner that has a crazy business themselves. They're managing all these employees. They feel like they're probably babysitting. They have people quitting on them. They have all the stress of the GMs and the whole works. And to see the character that he has and the balance he has to let you pursue your dreams is phenomenal. And I
It's
think it really
phenomenal.
speaks to any of the owners if they would, I'm not going to say but if they would support their wives in doing half of what he has supported you in doing, I think the wife and him would be a much better dominating duo in life.
Absolutely. I think whenever a spouse sees that they're supported and that they can have a breakdown and that spouse is always going to be there and that no matter what they're going through in life, that if their spouse is there for them, it's like their best friend. It's like their shoulder to cry on, but also the same person who's going to build them back up and support them. And yeah, if you don't have that at home, that's hard. So anybody listening, men, wives, husbands, support each other because without that love and support, you could crumble, and that's not good for your business. It's not good for your family. The best thing you can do is to get on the same team. Essentially, that's your person, that's your best friend, that's your teammate, and you've got to conquer life as a team. And if you don't, then that can lead to some hard times, and it's never life in general is not easy. And so for you to have a person that you can go through life who's going to be there for you no matter what, there's nothing like it for sure.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So, can you tell us where we can buy Sinless Sweets? And if we don't live near you,
Yes,
can we still get them? And your
you sure
website,
can.
and just give us a little info.
Yeah, so you can head on over to our website, sinless-sweet.com. And then whenever you go to the website, you can read about our story, how Sinless Sweets got started. You can see our shipping menu, and then all of the fun creations that we have going on in our store. And then you can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to be able to do these fun recipes at home with the family. You can just like and subscribe. It's at Sinless Sweet Treats. So you can just look up Sinless Sweets on YouTube and you should be able to find it. And you'll be able to see Brian and the boys and my mom on there doing all the fun things. But yeah, definitely check us out. Check out our website, check out our YouTube, and hopefully you guys will get Sinless Sweets shipped to your door.
And are you on Instagram, Facebook? Where can they
Yep.
see you?
Yeah, so we have an Instagram and a Facebook, Sinless Sweets. It's just Sinless and then Sweets Sweets. And that's on Facebook and on Instagram. I think on Instagram the handle is at Sinless Sweet Treats.
Great. I hope someday you write a book. There's been a
I
lot
hope so
happening.
too. There's been a lot happening. It's a lot. Be a good read, I think.
Yeah, so now your email, could you share your email? Are you willing for people to reach out with
Yeah,
questions? I know that this is
absolutely.
going to impact a lot of people. There'll be spouses of Augusta Nation business owners probably reaching out. And so I don't know if your employees manage your email or if you
It's just
do, but
me.
could
Yep.
people reach out? Okay.
Yeah, it's absolutely just me. So if you are listening and you have any questions about business or being a spouse of a business owner, I have been there and done that. And so definitely feel free to reach out. I'll give you my personal, it's just Amber Connor on Facebook if you want to reach out to me personally. And then my email is amber at sinless-sweet.com. And that goes directly to my email. So either whether you reach out on Facebook or reach out on social media or the email, that is all me handling that. So
Excellent. So we'll close out today, and I hope you have an amazing day. And thank Brian for letting you come on.
I will. It was so good talking to you, Liz.
You too. See you later.
Bye.